Hi, this is Emma Sword from Gentle Shepherd Care. Today, I'm having a conversation with Kim Look, and we're having a great talk about various topics. But before I start, I want to talk about my love for caring for aging, the older adults. I started this home care company. I'm a registered nurse with over 35 years of experience. And when I wanted to figure out what to do for the rest of my life in caring for the older adults, which is something that I've been doing for years, I thought this is what I'm going to do. So I started a home care company. I started a company to help the older adults to age gracefully with dignity. And when I started, what I discovered was that a lot of people, they really were not aging with dignity. The basic standard of care was everybody's taking pills for chronic diseases. And so I had a lot of my clients who were living with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, MS, and I wanted to do more for them. And I started to go down to find out what can I do to help alleviate or slow down the progression of the disease, provide something to increase their health, increase independence. And I discovered and so I was able to put together a new protocol where I am helping my older adults now to the goal is to slow down aging, slow down progression of chronic diseases, help them to be more independent as long as possible. And so to give them key the tools to be able to help them age well with dignity. And so with that, I discovered Kim Look, and she is an expert in the area of ozone and UV lights. And so today I am spending this morning with her so we can talk about the specific topic or that I have added to my protocol, and to teach my older adults how these therapies can help them achieve what they want, which is age well with dignity, thrive, and live on their own terms. So, thank you, Kim, for um, joining me today, and thank you for joining me in this conversation. And I am right open. Number one, I want to tell you, Kim, what I'm covering, what the key things that I have in my protocol. Number one, nutrition for the older adults, nutrition for people living with chronic diseases, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, neurological diseases, and how does ozone in UV lights help them?
Man, it's such an honor to be here with you today, Emma. And I just so grateful for the work you've done in terms of these aging adults, and work to focus on helping them be, I love the terms you use, independent and aging gracefully and with dignity. I think it's even when you're younger, it's just one of those like imminent fears. You kind of like, someday that's going to be me. And how can I do it a little bit better? At least that's my position. I'm not super young anymore. And I've gotten to a point where these things start to creep in and you're just not the same as you used to be. And, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around aging. And I've been enough to be in a world of healthcare that is focused on prevention, but focused on doing things differently to, bring back health. I think that that's where current science is that we can actually reverse aging. There's now studies showing that we can reverse some neurological diseases, we can reverse some cardiovascular diseases. And it comes through exactly what you're talking about, starting with nutrition. And so I would say, I guess, to your audience, that it's never too late. It's never too late to think about these things and to do something different. And to, even consider your future, even though you might be up in those later years of lifespan. Like, you just never know. You might be able to get another 10, 20 years out of your life and be able to spend that time with your family, be able to be useful and a contribution to society. And at least, we're all going to die someday, but at least do it with dignity, at least be able to live it the way that you want to. So Before I got into all this, I was definitely, my core has always been nutrition since I was very, very young. I don't know why, but it just was always something that intrigued me and something that I was fascinated with. I didn't always do it well, but the idea that what we eat and what we consume can either work for us or work against us. And we're learning a lot more about that as the science evolves and as time goes on. But um, it's paramount. I mean, I just don't think that we can avoid it. But, as we age, it's not always just studies and different elements of working with people, you get to where you care less about food or you're just not even hungry, right? Like making that a priority or the energy to want to cook good meals and to eat wisely. And then we fall back on vitamins and oftentimes pharmaceuticals, like you mentioned. So, the world I am in and have been for about 15 years is IV therapy.
Mhm,
And the thing I loved about it was that at its core, it's natural, it's nutrition.
mhm,
But you can do high doses, high concentrations, and so oftentimes high quality. And you don't have to be so focused on making it and consuming it the normal way. You can do and get some of these benefits of core nutrition through intravenous. And I know that's one of your goals is to, bring that to your clients. But with or without it, there's ways to support the body. And you can't necessarily go without eating or without consuming, good nutrition, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats. Now we're even into peptides and ways to take natural things and introduce them into the body a little bit unnaturally, which is with a needle or into the bloodstream. But I've seen so many chronic diseases become asymptomatic, we'll say it that way, because of high doses of nutrition. Like vitamin C, for example, is something that we as human beings do not manufacture on our own. We have to consume it. Then
mhm.
there's things like vitamin D, where you can only consume up to your 25, 21, 25 or so, and then you can only maintain, right? That's part of being human and part of aging. But you can continue to stay strong as possible when you can get the right nutrition and at the right amounts into your body, into your bloodstream in this way. So lots of opportunity for doing IV nutrition at any age.
Yes, thank you. Now, Kim, talk to me a little bit about hydration. Now, hydration is uh, it's so hard to get my older adults to drink as much as I want them to drink. Tell me about the importance of being well hydrated as you age.
Man, that's like a 3-day lecture, as you know, right? And yet it's so simple. The thing with hydration is just that every cell in the body needs fluid to
Mhm,
function well.
mhm,
And anything that I do in terms of IV, and otherwise too, I just think of the core, right? The core principle of cell biology, cell communication, and then the cells work upwards towards blood volume, carrying oxygen and nutrition, and then into tissues and organs and systems, and then the whole body. And the whole body, but starting at cells is required, it's dependent on hydration. How our muscles fill with hydration. Not feel as an FEEL, but fill, FILL, with proper nutrition in order to function and support. Cellular communication, right? Cells have to talk to each other to carry out certain performances in our body, and that is independent or dependent on hydration. So it's just so fundamental, but I'm not great at it either. Honestly, I give myself IVs just to get good hydration because I do a lot of things that expend the
mhm.
hydration, like athletics and drinking coffee and things like this. And I'm not that great at drinking it. It's just not my favorite beverage, but it's so powerful in terms of how we handle stress, how we handle oxidation or free radicals, which are those like things in our bodies that kind of cause us to break down a little bit. Immune system function is so dependent on it. So at its core, I mean, as we age, I think we automatically become more and more dehydrated. and then also at a level that we can uptake the good amounts of oxygen and hydration. And then the fun part about doing like IV hydration is you've got some other minerals in there. And
Hmm.
so you've got electrolyte balance. Most people don't realize our blood is not made of water. There's a lot of water in it, but we can't just deliver water to the bloodstream. There's actually a mix of sodium and potassium and these minerals that actually create balance and also cell communication. They are critical for what nutrients are taken up into cells and then utilized for function. So it's really simple and it's also quite complex, but it's just a fundamental piece of good health and good aging.
And it's so it's like magic after getting a bag of IV fluid, which you can't just drink down. So hard to get older. Even me, like us, getting that number 6, 8 glasses, even just water, you can't get all that down. And so much more older adults, they're not thirsty enough to be able to drink all the fluid that is required to be able to nourish their body and give them the energy, the strength that they need.
I think that's the magic of IVs is it's instant. It's
Yeah.
instantaneously in the bloodstream. Otherwise, you have to drink it or eat it. It's got to get into your gut. It's got to be processed and then carried out. And there's value to that. But we're not always able to, whether it be a lifestyle or whether it be a circumstance that we're under or whether it be as we age, those desires to eat and drink often diminish or start to go down. So it's actually really convenient and really nice to just have somebody like you come into a home, come into a place of residence and be able to just instantly kind of pump somebody up with the basic fundamentals that we need to just function and feel good throughout the day.
Yeah. Give them the energy to to go on. The other issue that I find with older adult is sleeping,
Mm.
and I can't either the it's not just sleep but quality of sleep. And so let's talk about that for older adults. Part of the aging process, or part of the, as a key element or pillar to be able to optimize someone's health, especially when not only when they're aging, but dealing with chronic diseases. It's people who are living with chronic disease, such as Parkinson's, they have things that are keeping them from getting good sleep. Uh, either or someone living with pain, chronic pain, which is keeping them from. How does that affect their health? Sleep.
Well, all of our healing happens while we're asleep and in good sleep, right? They talk about the REM sleep, and we just cannot rest and repair if we can't sleep. So, even though it's not always under our control, it's something we need to work towards and focus on, doing. And sometimes even medications make sense there because if you just can't sleep, you can't repair, you can't heal. And so, you know, sometimes I think there's a place for those things, even though they often have side effects, and so it's more of a short-term fix. In fact, I work locally with a sleep expert, and I've spent time shadowing her, and every single time she prescribes a sleep aid, she says, and now your chances of Alzheimer's and dementia just went up.
Mm,
So this is a short term plan. Now we have to work on your lifestyle. We have to work on getting you to eat good foods because
mhm,
nutrition plays such a role there. Let's talk about like magnesium. I mean, magnesium helps us relax. It helps all of our it's a communicator for our hormones. It helps, the nervous system, helps the heart, helps muscles relax. And so if we're deficient in even that one thing, we've now potentially disrupted over 500 processes in the body that all contribute to how we rise for the day and
mhm.
perform and how we go to bed. There's so much now, and I don't know if this is generally the older population, but definitely the younger is just the distractions, right? And
Mhm.
not having a good bedtime routine. And I think as we get older, it almost can become easier to not have a good bedtime routine because maybe we're retired and we don't have to get up in the morning, or maybe,
mhm,
there just isn't a lot to look forward to or a lot to hope for or expect out of the next day. But in terms of just what you said, the quality of aging and the dignity that we can have as we age, it really is going to be dependent on how well we rest and heal. So, making sure that you're giving yourself that time to, wind down, eat properly. You got to have enough protein and different things in your body in order to start to rest. And then making sure those distractions, whatever they might be, whether it be playing bingo with the buddies or whether it be being on your phone or just watching the news too late, you need to remove those distractions so that you can try to rest and clear your mind so that you can sleep. So, there's also lots of things in terms of nutrition and ozone. Hydration is one of those. Those minerals in hydration will help us relax and sleep. They work in the nervous system, the brain, the muscles, the hormone levels, like I mentioned, and even at a cellular level, that's going to help us shut down and sleep. So there's that. Oxygen is a big one. Again, working with a sleep expert, they do the sleep test, the testing
mhm,
for sleep apnea, etc.
mhm,
And most people are not breathing well as they sleep.
mhm,
And
mhm,
then they're not getting good sleep. And their body's literally deprived of oxygen.
mhm,
And to watch her process and get people on a CPAP and so forth so they can sleep, it's just amazing how they wake up so different. Their
mhm,
energies are so different. They don't need, we're talking probably younger populations, but they don't need all that caffeine in the morning and caffeine and stimulants to stay awake, which then mess up, especially if you take them too late, how we go to bed. And they don't then need the downers like alcohol and so forth to wind down just when they're able to get enough oxygen while they sleep.
mhm. Now,
So,
one of the things that I notice with older adults is their sleeping pattern is very different. The circadian rhythm is not in check. And so they're either sleeping a lot during the day. So the time, their days and time is switched now that they're not working. So if they're not sleeping well at night, so they find themselves like snoozing throughout the day, you know, so the sleep is break in and out. And so they really don't have that pattern or that rhythm correctly to be able to go to bed at night, because the nighttime sleeping is the important time of sleeping. And so they're not doing that well. So then during the day they're tired, because during the day they should be active, but now that they're tired because they didn't have good sleep, and they might think they're sleeping. People, they might be, oh, they sleep all the time, but it's because they shouldn't be sleeping all the time. They should be in a rhythm of sleep.
yeah, you bring up such a good point. And you mentioned circadian rhythm. A lot of people don't realize what that is, but
Mhm.
um, man, I could go so many places with this. But this just life on this planet begins when the sun comes up. And
Yes.
actually, there's research that shows about 5 minutes prior.
Hmm.
Oxygen levels on this planet are the highest about a little under 5 minutes before the sun comes up. Doesn't matter where you're living, doesn't matter what time zone it is, but about 5 minutes before the sun comes up.
Hmm.
And so our bodies are made, right, over centuries of time, made to respond to that. That is, sunlight is required for us to grow any food, for us to function and live and work, right? And so we're literally designed to rise with the sun and to go to bed with the fall of the sun. And as we age, I think it's even cultural and psychological that again, once we get to a point, a certain age, we're like, this shouldn't matter anymore, or we're
Hmm.
tired, and now we're like, we can take naps and, and do, and it's a psychosomatic thing, but it's a cultural thing too, that we've earned this right to take naps or to go to bed whenever we want. And it's true. We have worked hard our whole lives to get to a point where it's less ritualized, right?
Hmm.
But our bodies are designed to rise with the sun and go to bed with the sunlight. And to take that more seriously as we age, it's probably a good cultural thing that we could improve on. And
Hmm.
just say, I'm going to get up early, or I'm going to get up with the sun because that's best for my body. I'm going to stay active and do things. that keep me moving, that keep me awake, and utilizing some of that energy so that I can feel rested, right? We have to use energy in order to then feel
Mhm,
tired.
mhm,
And then when the sun goes down, everything goes out. And I just think about when it comes to food, sleep, oxygen, sunlight, I think of my grandparents
mhm,
and to live more like them. If there's anything on a label that you don't recognize, don't eat it.
mhm,
If there's, if you think about your grandparents and that they were working outside, they were breathing fresh air, they were getting more sunlight, then we need to focus on spending time to do that and being more
mhm,
physically active. And sleep is one of those things, right? In order for those guys to exist, and many of them were farmers and ranchers, you got up with the sunlight and you went to bed. There was no electricity. There weren't these other things
Unknown caller. Mhm,
to keep us awake at night. And so you were forced to go to bed. All they had
mhm,
was candlelight, right?
mhm,
Um, so I think more in terms of living a little bit old fashioned that way and yet in a modern world. But that is the way that we have evolved over time. There's a person who's a really good sleep expert, and his first book was about sleep. And he was just sharing on one of his podcasts, and this isn't to your population per se, but the power of sleep. They did a short study on a bunch of 15-year-old kids, and they deprived them of 1 hour of sleep per
mhm,
night for, I
mhm,
believe it was just like a week or two, very
mhm,
short period of time.
mhm,
I do think of the aging population a little bit more like kids where they need a little bit more sleep, but the hours to which they sleep is generally a little bit off. But
mhm.
anyway, they deprive these kids instead of 7 hours, they got 6 hours of sleep. And in the teenage 15, 16-year-old boys, their testosterone went down by 25%
Wow.
in that very, very short period of time,
Mhm,
just by reducing their sleep by an hour. And it wasn't like they were getting 1 hour of sleep or 2 hours of sleep. It just wasn't the normal seven.
mhm,
So to show the power of sleep and
mhm,
how we heal and restore and maintain youthfulness,
mhm.
I think that's a great illustration and something that we can now test and know for sure.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I'm helping. I notice that is not being monitored or cared for in older adults. That's my goal, to help older adults get better sleep, because I really believe that it's going to affect even how they age with dignity. One of the things that for we could talk about sleep forever because it's such a broad and big topic, is the cortisol level even affect sleep, and how when the cortisol levels are not managed, and how does affect the stress, the amount of stress. And so I'm going to move in from that into inflammation, and the topic of inflammation that affect so many of our older adults and their chronic diseases. And so that's another topic, or that's another aspect of aging that is being not addressed, as people age. I think all of us think that's just natural as you age, but inflammation is one of the things. Let's talk about that inflammation in the body.
Yeah, it's such a my background's in functional medicine where we look at the cause of aging and the cause of disease. And we know well that inflammation is one of the greatest sources of disease and illness. And you have to think of inflammation just as inflammation's part of our body's natural healing response, but it's supposed to be very short term.
Mhm,
You injure yourself, you cut yourself,
mhm,
you sprain your ankle, you are under other types of stress, psychological or emotional stress for short periods of time. And the body ramps up a little bit on the inflammation in that specific area with different type of inflammatory cells and receptors and etc. And then it's supposed to get in there and fix it and go away, right? The
mhm,
inflammation goes away. And now we know that there's so many things that are triggering that. So everything that we've talked about leads into chronic inflammation, lack of nutrition, poor nutrition, right? The foods that most of us are eating are creating inflammatory responses. It's no longer an injury or a cut or just a stress at work. It is the food we consume is
Mhm.
causing our body to immunologically respond.
Well, it's like an injury to the body.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. And it's a systemic injury, which means the symptoms can show up just about anywhere and in any way.
Mhm.
And then we talked about like hydration, same thing. Without proper again, hydrogen and oxygen, the immune system can't heal as well.
Mhm.
Oxygen is required in every location. Let's say again, you hurt your shoulder, you cut your finger, or it's required in the healing process. And then you've got sleep, and without proper sleep, you can't heal. Your immune system isn't restored and renewed, as well as the things that are causing us to not sleep are also causing injury to the body and inflammation. And it's been known for quite some time that inflammation is the cause of disease.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
prolonged inflammation in any one area that causes chronic disease.
Mhm.
And again, that can manifest itself as a neurological piece, as a psychological piece, as a physical piece, cardiovascular disease or bone health, but, lack of certain things that then lead to inflammation is one of the main causes. There's only 4 or 5 causes of disease. So it's not normal. I mean, it's normal for short terms. It's not normal or good. We always used to say in one of the practices I worked at that prolonged inflammation creates collateral damage.
Mhm.
When the immune system's in a certain area trying to fix it, it's like hammering a nail into something that's supposed to fix it. But if you keep hammering, it's going to eventually break down that piece of wood or that thing that you're hammering, and then even maybe splintering off and causing a cascade of events. So you're totally right. Like, I mean, inflammation is just, and it can manifest itself in so many ways, but it is ultimately one of the first signs of breakdown. If you look at pancreatitis, if you look at tendinitis, if it like itis just means inflammation.
Mhm.
So if you're diagnosed with something with an itis, it
Mhm.
just to me tells me that if I don't do something about that inflammation, in a matter of days, weeks, months, years, I'm going to have a cancer or I'm
Mhm.
going to have a diagnosis
Diagnosis, yeah.
where
Like
that
arthritis.
collateral, yes, arthritis is just an inflammation of joints, but
Mhm.
goes on too long and guaranteed if you've had an injury to something somewhere you're going to have, an itis, especially
Mhm.
an arthritis. But again, chronic is now
Mhm.
become a diagnosis that requires medications, but really it's just saying your immune system's in there trying to fix something that it's not doesn't have enough support to
Mhm.
fix.
Yeah.
And or let's say diet. You keep eating those, whatever, those Doritos every single night. Your immune system's in there every single night trying to deal with that, trying to fix it. And over time, your immune system gets tired and it
Yeah.
gets weary and it just can't perform the job. So in some cases, you have to remove those triggers of inflammation. That could be stress, it can be emotional, physical, it could be something you're eating, it could be lack of nutrition,
Lack of sleep.
oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah, lack of sleep. So when you restore those things, oftentimes the inflammation will come down.
Mhm.
But it does take time. And as we age, we just have a reduction in those resources. So, again, that's something I love about this IV therapy when it's natural is these vitamins and minerals, ozone, ultraviolet blood irradiation. They get to some of those causes of inflammation as well as actually helping the different aspects or different elements of the immune system do their job better. So
Yeah.
we've seen autoimmune diseases just go off the charts in the last 5 years and 10 years. Um, and that's the immune system being overactive, just responding to every little thing. I hear people all the time like they're literally allergic to the air they breathe, and this has become reality. But there's a trigger somewhere along the line, if not multiple. And so what I love about this IV therapy is it can approach the trigger and also support the immune system to balance and function the way it's supposed to.
And neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's, we all know that inflammation is at the root cause of
I would
cognitive
say,
issues.
yeah, neurological all the way. Parkinson's is different than Alzheimer's, but they're at the core still an inflammation of that system. And so, but you just have to think about the longer that inflammation goes, the more long-term damage is going to be accrued. The
Yes.
quicker that you can eradicate that inflammation, the more of the natural preservation you're going to have. So
Yeah.
I always tell patients with those conditions, like I don't have the capacity in IV therapy and most of the spaces I work in to know how much is permanent damage versus how much is just an inflammation problem that if we get that to go away, then the symptoms resolve.
So yeah. Yeah.
Now, that said, we know that just, we know that high intensity workouts, which for the older population is not extreme. It sounds extreme, but it's not extreme. We know that just some simple lifestyle changes can actually reverse those conditions.
The other issues that my population is dealing with is mobility,
Mm,
and falls. And so um, a lot of time older adults would move if they can. Mobility, we should put mobility together with chronic pain. They would move if they could. They don't move because they don't move, they stay, so they sit long. And so they sit long because they're having pain when they get up or they are afraid of walking. Let's talk about mobility in my population, and that's an issue for me, and those are one of the things that I want to be able to resolve for my older adults, to be able to get rid of the pain, make them feel safe enough to be able to move, and because if you don't move, you lose it. Okay.
yeah, I think one of the biggest pains that I have is hearing anyone say that this is just part of aging.
Yes. Yes.
To
Yes.
just
Yeah.
accept that
Yeah.
pain is part of aging, and then eventually you find yourself 10, 15, 20 years down the road and you're now that pain has overtaken you. And then to accept that there's nothing you can do
You
about
could do
that.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sad. That's frustrating. And yet it does take, some work and foresight to, find out what you can do about things. But to give in to your pain, I think is doing a big disservice to yourself and the dignity that you could possibly remain as you age. But it is still, falling, musculoskeletal imbalances, osteoporosis,
Hmm.
it still is one of the leading causes of death.
Hmm.
And so in the world I work in, there's millions of dollars in private funding being put into these basic causes because we're learning more, because we have more tools, and because in all the money we've spent in pharmaceuticals and long and lifespan, expanding lifespan, we haven't solved the problems yet.
Hmm.
And so a lot of these folks are focused on, and there's so much research now that talks about movement is imperative. Just like you
Hmm.
say, it's one of those core things. And obviously we have to have the energy to move. We
Yeah.
have to be out of pain to move. And
Yeah.
I think that still goes back so much to basic lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but there's so much literature now saying that one of the measurements of longevity, so how long and how well we will live, is built into some specific cells and fibers in muscle. The more muscle mass we're able to remain or retain, then the more bone density we also retain. And then that balance of bone and muscle structures is what keeps us moving and keeps them both strong. So, we have to figure out as we age, I've had to do this myself multiple times, either through aging or injury, how to keep moving even when I have an injury or a
Hmm.
pain or again, a stress in life, something that keeps you from wanting to do that. So one of the great things again is finding some natural ways to do that, IVs, and you can actually localize some injections for pain. But oftentimes these pain receptors are just something that's happened in the past and it still sends these pain signals, and now we don't want to move. But fighting through that and doing things to keep our muscles stronger, keeps our bones stronger, keeps our stability stronger, and then we can definitely age better.
Now, Kim, looking at all these issues that my patients are facing, I really wanted to bring a solution. I didn't want to just put a band-aid on it or watch them go down life like this, because my goal is to help people to live quality of life. If they live to be 90, 100 years old, that those years are quality of life. And I see these issues as they are unsolved. And if we don't solve them, they are unable to have that quality of life. So even if they were to live 80, they just live looking at the walls. So I want to be that person who brings a solution. And so that is one of the reasons that I created this protocol that would include ozone, UV, IV therapy. Talk to us about people who have never heard things like such a thing as ozone and UV lights.
Well, it's such a noble cause, and sometimes it just takes someone like you to bring that awareness, right? Because conventional medicine doesn't use these tools. I alluded to it, you alluded to it, that the conventional method is keeping people alive longer, but their quality of life is not much better. So what's the point? Right?
Hmm.
What's the point if you can't keep that quality and that dignity in place? But it takes knowledge in order to learn something and then do something about it. So your clients are just so fortunate to have you to be learning about this, and it's never too late to start these types of protocols. In fact, it could really make all the difference. So oxygen and ultraviolet therapy are two separate things. We put them together in the same treatment. They work better together. They're synergistic. And that makes sense, right? Combining ozone is just we breathe two oxygen molecules, O2, and O3 is three oxygen molecules. And it's we manufacture it with a piece of equipment, but it's just like the ozone in our atmosphere, or that's created with lightning and moisture or oxygen and oxygen. And so it's kind of a supercharged oxygen. So we're taking these fundamentals of light, oxygen, energy, and we're introducing them into the body in real, like, higher doses, higher quality with real quick introductions. And as you might realize, like oxygen and light are very germicidal. So anything like a virus or a bug or a bacteria or a mold or even a cancer cell can't survive an oxygen-rich environment or an environment of light. And it's not dissimilar from um, the way that things function outside our bodies, right? Like if you have a moldy, dark, or you have a dark, moist area, you're gonna grow mold, right?
Hmm.
If it's well lit with sunlight and also exposed to oxygen, that will all dry out and you will not have mold at all. So our bodies can be very similar, but those are fundamental pieces to plants and human, cells and the ways that we're made. And we need those things to convert. Then we need nutrition to convert those things into energy. So this ozone is just a supercharged oxygen, but it's germicidal. It also helps with the blood rheology, it's called, which is helping things circulate, which diabetes, neurological, these things usually come with, and so do a lot of medications. They decrease circulation. So if you can't get oxygen and therefore nutrition to your extremities or two different tissues and organs, then they don't have everything they need to survive and they start to die. And light works the same way. Every cell in our bodies, especially neurons,
Hmm.
have light receptors. And if they don't get that light, again, as we age or even in midlife, as we're working indoors and everything, we just don't get enough light, then our bodies don't have what it takes to flourish. So it's germicidal, it helps with circulation, it modulates the immune system. It definitely then helps with that cell focus. Like going back to eighth grade biology, we have this powerhouse in our cells called the mitochondria, and that produces energy. As we age, especially lack of those things that make that function work well, it starts to diminish and we make less and less and less energy. And those cells, that type of energy is in our liver, in our kidneys, in our skin, so ozone and UV feed these natural receptors with the building blocks, the fundamental building blocks that keep the body alive.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, the longer we have that higher concentration, higher quality of these fundamentals, the younger we live. And yet, it doesn't matter if you're 40, if you're 50, 60, 70, 80. If you start introducing these things into your body this way, then you can automatically slow down
Mm-hmm.
those aging processes or the causes of aging and give yourself the benefit of a higher quality life.
Mm-hmm. So a typical patient, I tell them that it's not a one-time thing. You don't come in and I give you a one treatment of ozone therapy and light, and here you are going up, you up and running. So I recommend part of my protocol is a 10 weeks of therapy, that they will come in, and let's talk about that, like what a protocol like that looks like for a client with, for example, with Parkinson's, or with a chronic disease, MS, or um, uh, they would continue on. My recommendation is not only we focus on these hydration, nutrition, but this is part of the main treatment is our ozone and IV, UV light, that they will come in over a period of time before we start seeing um, some benefits. But I want to give them something quick benefits so they can see it, give them back some energy.
Yeah, it's such a smart protocol because I think the disservice is to let somebody think that if they do one thing one time, it's going to
Mhm.
miraculously fix or cure somebody, right?
They
And
have
it's just
chronic
like that.
problems.
Yeah, we're just that's not the way humans are. It's not like I use these examples all the time, but it's not like you sleep or eat one big meal on Monday and then you don't have to eat again until the next
For the rest of
Monday.
the week, yeah.
It's not like we brush our teeth on Tuesday and we don't have to do it again for a month. Like our bodies require regular maintenance and
Yes.
regular intake of these certain very fundamental things like food and light and oxygen. We can't live hardly even a few minutes without oxygen. So, and then unfortunately, the older we get before we take action in these areas, the more aged we are, and maybe the more
Hmm.
broken down we are. And so the sicker we get or the older we get, it might take a few more of these treatments to actually feel something. But you have to remember that the body's utilizing these things whether we feel it or not. Um, and depending on who we are, how we live, what our history is, it might take a few treatments for one person, a handful for somebody else. And for somebody else, they might feel a major improvement with one. It might last a couple of days, but we have to continually give our bodies these things. So I think IV therapy can be a replacement when we're not able to do it on our own. It can also be a little bit of a band-aid. I don't love that analogy because it's associated with pharmaceuticals being band-aids not getting to the source. But at the same time, sometimes we need that boost to our immune system, boost to help us get well, boost for energy, boost for sleep. And then once we get that boost, we can start to do it on our own. And then we won't need as many or as frequent of the IVs. But initially, it could be that kickstart, that aggressive kickstart that we need. But we always need to continue. I'm 47 years old and I still try to do this stuff every single month at least.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even more so if I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm under a lot of stress or I'm traveling a lot more or it's winter time and I live in where there's sun, but it's very, very, very cold, -2 today. So I'm not
Hmm.
outside a whole lot. So, you have to kind of compensate sometimes for the lack that you might have in your situation, but it's a continual process to stay well. And
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest shift in mindset that we need as human beings, especially as we age, is just to not give up, to not ever get to a place where, you think that you can lay around all day and live well. It just probably
Yeah. Yeah.
won't happen.
Yeah.
Don't ever settle for what your life might be because there's always solutions. There's always things that you can do. And also accept that it takes work. I mean,
Yeah.
just to be
Well,
healthy, it takes work.
yeah. Our protocol is for the person who wants to thrive.
Yes. 'Yes.
A protocol is for someone who wants to not just, 'cause, you know, we have to be careful. 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 watch things, life happen to them, who wants to continue to contribute to society as they age, who wants to have the energy, who wants to live independently as long as possible. It's for those people. For the people who just want to let, aging go by and say this is aging, that's fine. And that's fine. Our protocol is for that person who says, yes, I know I'm aging, but I have a lot to give, number one, and I want to be independent as long as possible. I want to be able to do things for myself, not have other people do them for me. That's one thing. So so our protocol is set, especially if someone was diagnosed with Parkinson, for example. And how do you slow down the progression of the disease? The medication that they give you is just to manage the
Mm.
symptoms. And so with the medication managing symptoms and our therapy, once we start giving someone they start getting some good result, then now we can focus on the nutrition, and then now we can focus on the sleep, and then they start getting these, and so we can um, design things specifically where that person can now, they're feeling good, they can move, they're feeling good, they're having less pain, then they can start looking at these things and start thriving. That's our goal with our protocol. um,
Yeah, I love it. I love, love, love it. And I I think that it's so nice to have, again, whether it be phases of life or different circumstances we find ourselves in, or just that we're getting older, we're 60, we're 70 years old. It's so helpful to have somebody behind us that says there's more fight in you, right? There's more will to live, and there's more, I think of my kids and their grandparents, and how impactful the wisdom in an elder person can be for even the younger
so
generations.
much, yes, yes.
And to have somebody behind you that reminds you of that, right? To have somebody say, we can, you can do better than this. You don't have to give up. You don't have to become bedridden. You don't have to be a victim to these conditions. There's actually more you can do about it. It's what we need socially is always somebody to support us and be out there saying, I found something that could help you. But you have to want to do it, right? You also
Yeah,
have to want to be that client of yours that says, I'm with you. You found it for me. I'm ready. I want
yeah,
to move forward. I want to do better. And then I think for a lot of your clients and the ages and situations they're in is to encourage their kids and grandkids
yes,
to get aging differently and to
yeah,
start it younger. These tools are available now, very readily available. And you can make that impact for your kids and your grandkids and leave a legacy that's a different outcome.
yes.
I think it's one of the fallacies of medicine is that we've been taught that anything that happened to our parents or grandparents is inevitably going to happen to us, right?
Mhm.
These disorders or diseases that run in the family.
Family, yeah.
Well, functional medicine says that only about 5% of diseases come hereditarily.
Mhm,
The rest of them are all maybe hereditarily based on lack of nutrition over
mhm,
generations
mhm,
or lack of mental wellness over generations. And
mhm,
so the body does adapt to not having those nutrients or that sleep and becomes a more sicker population.
mhm.
But there's a great book called Deep Nutrition on that, where it can take 3 generations to improve or break down from a genetic standpoint that's stemming from a lack of or pro nutrient.
Yeah,
So it's possible to change these things, but we have to find ourselves relevant as we age and choose to change those generations behind us and empower them with knowledge so that we can make those changes. And
yes.
if
That's the
nothing
new
else for
topic,
the older,
epigenetic. Mhm.
yes, epigenetics. If nothing for those older patients that you talk to, do it for your kids, do it for your
Yeah,
grandkids.
yeah.
Show them a better way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you today for Kim. What a great conversation. I think we could talk each of these topics on by themselves for an hour or more, but this is just touching the basics, and how introducing this new protocol to my current clients that I want to provide this information, this education for them, and anyone else they know who might be interested in having something different and looking at aging differently and wanting to thrive and age with dignity. That's my goal. Thank you very much for your time
Man,
today.
it was my pleasure, Emma, and good luck to you with all these services and these therapies for your clients and your patients. I know you're gonna love it. I know they're gonna love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.